The real will wasn't hers. I don't think you're supposed to be here, the lawyer mutters, barely lifting his eyes from the mahogany table. Everyone in the room turns as I step in, heels clicking against polished wood, the envelope in my hand shaking barely. Patricia's smile drops like a mask pulled off too fast. I am his daughter, I say evenly, eyes locked on hers. And I believe this concerns me more than anyone else in this room. Gregory, my father's longtime estate attorney, clears his throat nervously. Miss Winters, please, this isn't. But I don't let him finish. I place the red-sealed folder on the table with a deliberate thud. My father gave this to me 3 months before he died. He said if something ever felt off, I should open it and bring it here. Patricia rises slowly, her designer dress rippling with every angry breath she takes. This is outrageous. You were cut out, Olivia. Everyone knows that. Were they told that before or after she poisoned him? My name is Olivia Winters. I'm 29 years old, and I'm a civil litigation attorney based in Seattle. But nothing in law school prepared me for the courtroom drama unfolding in my own life. My father, Franklin Winters, died 6 weeks ago, and with him went the last man who truly knew me, loved me, and believed in me without condition. The woman standing across from me, Patricia Monroe, was his second wife. Younger, prettier, ruthless. She married my father 2 years after my mom died from lymphoma. I always felt like she showed up just a little too soon, with too much charm, too many talents, and too few answers. But love makes smart men blind, even men like my father. I wasn't invited to his funeral. She told everyone I was estranged. Why? Because I dared to question why he no longer remembered my birthday. Why I wasn't allowed to visit without calling first. Why his medications kept changing without medical documentation. I dared to see her. Now she's about to see me. 3 months ago, Dad took me sailing one morning on Lake Union. Just the two of us. It was a foggy Sunday, the kind of day where the city disappears and only water and voice exist. Liv, he'd said, lowering his voice, I don't have much time, and there are things I need you to know. My stomach sank. What's wrong, Dad? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he handed me a sealed manila envelope, red wax, his family crest. If anything ever happens and things don't feel right, take this straight to Gregory. I asked what was inside. He shook his head. Not now. Just don't let her erase you, or your mother. At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. But now, standing in this glossy law office across from a woman who replaced every photo of my mother with modern art and scented candles, it all makes terrifying sense. What's in that envelope could destroy her, or me. Gregory slowly opens the file. The tension in the room thickens with every creak of paper. Patricia stands frozen, lips parted, eyes darting from page to page. What the hell is that? She snaps, her voice cracking. He updated his will with me. He told me he did. Gregory doesn't respond. Instead, he flips to the final page and runs his finger over the signature. It's real. I recognize this seal and these witnesses. His voice drops. This supersedes the version we were preparing to read today. Everyone's looking now. Board members, trust attorneys, the smug financial planner she brought along like a pet. And then, what exactly does it say? I ask, arms crossed, daring her to meet my eyes. Gregory swallows. It reinstates you, Olivia, as sole beneficiary of the family trust. The family home, the firm shares, and all non-liquid assets revert to your name. Patricia Monroe receives a monthly stipend, revocable, only if no evidence of misconduct is discovered. She gasps, her face turning a sickly shade of white. There is evidence. Oh, so much. But should I show it now? Or let her panic? Here's the thing. She doesn't know I also have the surveillance photos. She doesn't know I've already spoken to the hospital pharmacist. She doesn't know I found the deleted emails between her and her not-so-ex-husband, Thomas Kane, the same man who showed up at Dad's lake house when he accidentally slipped in the shower. But soon, she will. Patricia's perfectly manicured hand slammed the table. You're bluffing. Franklin wouldn't do this. Not to me. Not after everything I gave him. Did she give him affection or sedatives? You should sit down, I say calmly. It's going to be a long morning. Her lawyer reaches out to steady her elbow, but she yanks it away, seething. And that's when the real question hits me. If this will is real, how far would she go to make it disappear? What else did she do before I could get here? Was my father's death really natural? That's what I'm about to find out. A stepmother too perfect, too fast. The first time I saw her, she wore red. Not just any red, blood red, silk that clung to her hips like sin and lips painted the exact same shade. She stood in the middle of my father's garden party like a predator dressed for a wedding, smiling sweetly, laughing too loudly, clutching a glass of rosé like it was part of her hand. I was 23 then, fresh out of law school. My dad had thrown the party to celebrate the launch of my own firm, a small but mighty practice specializing in inheritance disputes. The irony burns now. She introduced herself as Patricia Monroe, just Patty to friends. Her handshake was warm, her eyes cooler, calculating. I remember thinking, she's too beautiful for him. That sounds cruel. My dad was handsome in an aging Paul Newman kind of way. Graying temples, strong jaw, clear blue eyes. But Patricia looked like she belonged on a yacht with a younger man and a richer bank account. So why him? Why now? Within 6 months, she moved in. That's how quickly it happened. One day, my dad was still calling Mom the love of my life, and the next, he was replacing framed wedding photos with abstract metal wall art. I asked about the change. He said, "It's time for something new." Was it really? Or did she whisper that into his ear while wearing nothing but pearls? Sometimes I'd stop by unannounced, just to say hi to make sure he was okay, and Patricia would answer the door in a silk robe, like it was her house. I once caught her wrapping her arms around him from behind in the kitchen, lips pressed to his neck while he stirred pasta sauce. He looked like a man hypnotized. But what was I supposed to say? "Dad, your new wife has succubus energy." He'd only laugh. "Liv, don't be paranoid. You should see how she takes care of me. She's thoughtful, attentive. Too attentive, maybe." I tried. God knows I tried. I invited her to brunch. I bought her favorite wine. I listened as she droned on about aromatherapy and yoga retreats and spiritual boundaries. I even complimented her on the way she made Dad smile again. But she never really smiled at me. Her eyes always flicked up, down, sideways, like she was sizing me up, measuring how much space I still occupied in his heart, and how much she'd need to carve out. And her kids? Even worse. Mason, 22, thought he owned the damn place. He walked around shirtless, drinking from the wine fridge, parking his Porsche diagonally in the driveway like a trust fund brat. And Lindsay, 19, all curves and venom, would accidentally use my toothbrush or leave thongs on guest room doorknobs like a territorial cat. Was I imagining it? Or were they trying to erase me? One afternoon, I walked into the house and noticed something missing. My mother's necklace. A vintage gold chain with a tiny opal she wore every day of her life. It used to hang on a hook near the master bedroom mirror. Now it was gone. When I asked Patricia, her voice went sweet as syrup. "Oh, that? I think I stored it. It didn't match the new aesthetic." "The aesthetic?" "It was sentimental," I said, my voice shaking. "It belonged to my mother." She tilted her head. "And now your father belongs to me." That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a marriage. It was an occupation. How had my father let this happen? Why couldn't he see it? Weeks passed. Then months. I noticed subtle changes. His handwriting, once firm and neat, started sloping. His eyes, usually sharp, sometimes went blank during conversations. He forgot words, simple ones. He'd say, "You know, that thing," when talking about the garden hose. He'd trail off in the middle of stories. And worst of all, he stopped calling me Liv. It became Olivia. Distant, formal, as if I were someone else's daughter. I brought it up gently one evening. We were sitting on the patio, the same one where he used to read to me on summer nights. "Dad, are you feeling okay lately? You've seemed off." He looked startled, then confused, then angry. "What are you insinuating?" Patricia snapped, suddenly appearing with a fresh smoothie in hand. "Franklin's healthier than ever. We've been doing juicing and brain exercises." "Brainwashing, you mean?" Still, I backed off. I didn't want to fight. Not with him. But that night, I stayed late, and I saw something I wasn't supposed to. Through the crack in the bedroom door, I saw her straddling him, her white nightgown hitched up, her long nails pressed into his chest. But it wasn't intimacy. It looked like control. She leaned down, whispering into his ear, and he nodded, dazed, repeating her words like a prayer. Then she reached for the pill bottle, the one marked twice daily, after meals. She poured 3 into his palm. Why? I couldn't sleep for days after that. The image of her pale skin in the moonlight, of her controlling his body with practiced grace, it haunted me. Was he sick or being made sick? And most importantly, if something happened to him, would anyone believe me? The house that wasn't ours anymore. The morning after I saw her overdose him. Because that's what it was. No matter how elegant it looked, I returned to the house. I told myself it was to check on him, to pretend like I hadn't stood frozen outside his bedroom, breath stuck in my throat as my stepmother whispered poison into the mouth of the only man who'd ever truly loved me. But what I found that day was worse than anything I could have imagined. My key didn't work. The lock had been changed. I rang the bell. Twice. No answer. Finally, Patricia opened the door, perfectly composed, wearing yoga pants and a smug little smirk, like she had just finished her morning stretch and conquered the world before 9 a.m. "Oh," she said, raising a brow. "You didn't get the message?" "What message?" Her smile widened. "We've decided it's better if you call ahead from now on. You tend to upset Franklin. He needs peace, not drama." I laughed. Or tried to. "Peace? Is that what you're calling it now?" She tilted her head. "I'm sure your clients would be fascinated to know how unhinged you sound when talking to family." A threat. Subtle. Measured. That was her gift, twisting daggers while holding a glass of pressed juice. I forced a smile, the kind I wear in court before delivering the blow. "I want to speak to him, alone." "He's sleeping." "Then I'll wait." Patricia didn't move from the doorway. "This isn't your house anymore, Olivia. You left. You built a life somewhere else. Let us have ours." Let us have ours. That word still echoes in my skull. Ours, like everything he built, every floorboard, every picture frame, every late-night snack we shared by the fire, was just hers now. I stepped back. I didn't want to cause a scene. Not yet. But before I left, I peered inside, just enough to see what she'd done. My mother's portrait above the fireplace? Gone. Replaced by a bland, abstract print in beige and gold. The antique cabinet filled with my dad's book collection? Empty. Instead, scented candles, polished crystal bowls, the grand piano my mom used to play on Sunday mornings, vanished. When I got back to my car, I cried. Not the kind of sobbing you do when you're hurt, the kind you do when your childhood is erased, room by room. That house was my anchor, and now it had become her stage set, a museum curated by a stranger pretending to be part of our story. I stayed parked outside for a while, watching as Patricia floated across the living room barefoot, like she owned the air. Mason and Lindsay lounged on the leather sectional like royalty, sipping from champagne flutes even though it was barely 11 a.m. What had she promised them? What lie did she spin to make them believe this house, this man, this legacy, was theirs to inherit? And more importantly, what would they do to protect it? A few days later, I went to visit Dad during his doctor's appointment. I figured she couldn't stop me if I intercepted him in a public place. But when I arrived, I saw her first, standing beside the nurse's station, whispering something with one hand gently stroking the physician's elbow. Disarming. Dad was slumped in a chair across the room, pale, tired, his eyes blank as he flipped through a travel magazine upside down. "Dad?" I said gently. He looked up. It took a moment, but his face brightened. For a second, I saw him, my real father. "Liv, you look beautiful." Before I could respond, Patricia swooped in like a vulture. "There you are, sweetheart," she cooed. "The doctor wants to go over the new meds with us." Us. I touched his hand. It was cold, shaky. "Dad, can I talk to you? Just for a minute." Patricia placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Franklin, remember what we discussed about managing your energy?" He looked between us confused. Maybe just a minute, but she didn't let go. Something in me snapped. I stepped forward. "You're drugging him." Patricia blinked. "Excuse me? You think I don't notice the way he slurs now? The tremors? The confusion? You're keeping him compliant, and I want to know exactly what you're giving him." A beat of silence. Then she laughed. Loud. The whole clinic turned. "Wow," she said. "That's quite the accusation. You sure you don't want to go back to court and try disbarring yourself while you're at it?" I could feel eyes on me. Whispers. A nurse stepped between us. Patricia leaned in close, lips near my ear. "You think you're clever, don't you?" she hissed. "Keep pushing, Olivia. Let's see how much of that cleverness you still have when I bury him and your reputation." That night, I stayed awake, scrolling through Washington state probate law, flipping through my notes on chemical elder abuse, and researching drug interactions for seniors with early stage dementia. Because, yes, I finally had the diagnosis. She had coached a doctor into signing off on it 2 months ago. Convenient, isn't it? And suddenly, everything made sense. The slurred words, the disorientation, the missed calls, the blank stares. She didn't want to care for him. She wanted to control him. And all of it, every prescription, every family decision, every excuse to keep me away, was designed to isolate him until he was just a signature machine, a dying man on autopilot. My father was fading, but I hadn't faded with him. That was when I decided to go after her. I didn't care how clean her nails were, how sweet her voice sounded, or how convincing her fake tears had become. I would find proof. Because if I didn't, he'd disappear forever. And the house that once held my whole world would belong to the woman who slowly erased it. What kind of person rewrites history, and what kind of daughter lets her get away with it? The pills that made him forget me. It was a Tuesday when the pharmacist slipped. I'd driven out to the small neighborhood pharmacy Patricia always used, the one 2 blocks from the house, tucked between a wine bar and a Pilates studio. I told them I was picking up Dad's prescription. They asked if I was Mrs. Winters. No, I said, trying to smile. I'm his daughter. The tech blinked, then glanced over her shoulder. I think the pharmacist should talk to you. That's how I met Jeremy. Tall, young, probably just a few years older than me. He leaned over the counter and lowered his voice like he was revealing a classified secret. I probably shouldn't say this, he muttered, but is everything okay at home? I froze. Why do you ask? He looked genuinely uncomfortable. Just, your stepmother's been asking for stronger doses, saying the previous meds aren't working, even though your dad's charts look stable. It's just weird, like she's pushing for something sedative, not therapeutic. I didn't even feel myself breathing. What did she put him on? I asked. He hesitated. Lorazepam, then temazepam, then diazepam, all back to back, different doctors each time. My heart slammed against my ribs. You're saying she stacked benzos on him? I didn't fill the last one, he said quietly. I told her we needed a direct consultation. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sit still. I paced my apartment like a lioness. Why would she drug him that aggressively? To make him more malleable? To write her into the will? To keep him from me? I opened the envelope he gave me again, the one with the wax seal. I hadn't read all of it the first time. I was too emotional. But now I needed answers. Inside, along with the will, was a second note in his shaky handwriting. Liv, if you're reading this, I didn't beat her, but you still can. Watch for the man in the photos. He's not who she says he is. Ask Eleanor. Ask about the storage unit. Don't let her rewrite our story. Love, Dad? The photos? The storage unit? I hadn't seen those yet. I called Eleanor, his longtime office manager, early the next morning. She picked up on the second ring, her voice calm but tight with grief. I've been waiting for your call, she said. He told me to expect it. I swallowed hard. What storage unit was he talking about? She gave me an address in Renton, a small private facility behind a chain of used car dealerships. My dad always liked hiding important things in boring places. I drove there immediately, key in hand, hands shaking the whole time. The moment I lifted the roll-up door, the smell hit me first. Old books, leather, dust, and wood polish. Inside were boxes, dozens of them, labeled meticulously in his handwriting. But one stood out. It was marked only with 3 letters. Patricia Monroe Kane. Kane. I tore the box open. Inside, photos, dozens, some printed, some digital. Patricia, in a dimly lit restaurant, sitting across from a man I'd never seen before, older, scruffy, heavyset, his hand on hers. Their heads bowed together, lips almost touching. The timestamp? 2 months after she married my father. Other photos, her entering a cheap motel with the same man. Handwritten notes in my father's pen. Claims ex-husband abandoned her. Lied. Still in contact. Another note, private investigator hired. Confirmed ongoing relationship. I slumped onto the concrete floor. She hadn't just lied about her past. She fabricated it. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Saw your car at the pharmacy. Be careful what you're digging up, Liv. Not everything is safe for little girls. Little girls? She thought I was weak, emotional, outmatched. But she forgot I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm a goddamn attorney with 3 years of trial experience, and I just found out the woman who married my father never even divorced her last husband, which raised a chilling question. Was her marriage to Dad even legal? The next step was clear. I had to go to Gregory, my father's lawyer. I brought the new will, the photo evidence, and the PI files. We met at his office on a rainy Thursday. He reviewed everything in silence. Then he looked at me and said, "Olivia, this changes everything. Can we stop the current will from being executed?" He nodded. "If we can prove fraud, manipulation, or even potential elder abuse, we can invalidate it entirely." "What if I told you there's a chance she contributed to his death?" His eyes narrowed. "Then we're not just talking about civil court anymore. We're talking criminal charges." But the worst hadn't happened yet. That night, I returned to my apartment and found the door ajar. I froze, called security, waited downstairs until they cleared the place. The verdict? Drawers rifled through, boxes moved, photos gone. Not all, thank God. I had the original secured at Gregory's office, but the files I had at home, the copies of the drug logs, the older drafts of the will, were missing. Security footage? Wiped clean. Someone had known exactly what they were looking for, which meant only one thing. She knew, and she was willing to break in to keep the truth buried. That night, I sat in the dark, one question burning in my brain. If she broke into my apartment to destroy evidence, what wouldn't she do? Could she have killed my father? Or was that just the next step? The package Dad hid for me. The next morning, I returned to Gregory's office, this time with a fire in my chest. "We have to move fast," I told him, dropping the rest of the documents I had stashed in my glove box. "She's getting desperate. She broke into my apartment last night." He blinked. "Did you report it?" "I did. Police filed a report, but no fingerprints. The cameras were wiped." Gregory leaned back in his leather chair. "This isn't just a family dispute anymore, Olivia. This is turning into a case of premeditated fraud, and possibly worse." "Then let's treat it like one." He picked up the real will again, the one Dad had signed 6 months before his death, long before Patricia's version. "You said there was something about a man in the photos?" I nodded. "He's her ex, or at least that's what she called him. But there's no divorce record anywhere. She's still legally married to Thomas Kane. The entire marriage to my father was a sham." Gregory narrowed his eyes. "That changes everything." And it did. Because if she wasn't his legal wife, she wasn't entitled to anything. Later that afternoon, I met Eleanor again. We sat across from each other in a little French cafe tucked into a quiet street in Capitol Hill, like spies on a mission. She slid a small black USB drive across the table. "He gave me this the day before he went into the hospital," she said. "Said it was a backup. Told me not to mention it unless you came asking about the man in the photos." I clenched the drive in my hand. "Do you know what's on it?" "No," she said. "But he was very clear. It was the last piece of the puzzle. And he said to tell you she's not as careful as she thinks she is." Back home, I plugged it in. It loaded a single folder. Kane, recordings. I opened it. My stomach flipped. Dozens of audio files, clips of phone calls, conversations, surveillance logs. Some were nothing more than faint murmurs and background noises, but some were crystal clear. And one stood out. Timestamp, 2 a.m. Location, the lake house. I hit play. Thomas Kane's voice, grainy but unmistakable. "You said he'd sign everything over. You promised." "He will. He's just being difficult. I upped the dosage." "Are you sure he's not catching on?" "He mumbled something about Olivia yesterday, but don't worry. Once the new will is signed and filed, we'll handle it." Silence. Then Thomas laughs. "We could always speed things up. The old man's already confused half the time." "Don't joke like that." "I'm not." I stopped breathing. They planned it, or at the very least, they fantasized about it. That was enough to shift everything from suspicion to potential murder. I copied the file, backed it up 3 times. I knew what I had was volatile, dangerous, but it was truth. And truth, when aimed right, is deadly. But there was one final piece Dad had left behind. The key. In the envelope with the will was a small silver key on a chain. I hadn't known what it was for, until now. I called the bank first thing the next morning. Mr. Winters set up a private safety deposit box last year, the manager told me. You're listed as his successor access. I drove straight there, heart pounding the entire way. Inside the vault, past layers of security, I found it. A long, narrow box with a blue leather interior. Inside, a notarized letter detailing Patricia's aliases over the last 15 years, copies of emails between her and Thomas Kane with dates overlapping her marriage to my father, bank statements showing multiple wire transfers from my father's private accounts to her accounts, unbeknownst to him, and then photos. Dozens I hadn't seen, Patricia crying at a lawyer's office, signing documents under a false name, Thomas holding a burner phone, one image of a half-empty bottle of morphine, the label peeled, a note written by Dad tucked at the bottom. If I don't make it out of this, Olivia, know this. She made me sick. I trusted her, and she used that to bury me. Tell the truth. Burn her lies. I love you. I couldn't cry. Not then. There was no time. I called Caroline Lawson, a close friend and a brilliant estate fraud litigator. I sent her the files, the audio, the scanned letters. She didn't hesitate. We're going to destroy her, she said flatly. And we would. But there was still one thing left gnawing at me, one question circling like a vulture. Why didn't he leave her sooner? If he knew, if he had all this, why didn't he run? Was he waiting for the right moment, or had she already made sure he couldn't leave? 2 nights later, someone knocked on my door. It was Mason. Disheveled, pale, looking more like a lost boy than the smug rich kid who used to leave beer cans in Dad's pool. I don't know what's going on, he said, but I think she's losing it. I stared at him. You're just now figuring that out? She threatened Lindsay today, he mumbled. Told her she'd cut her off if she ever talked to you again. She's paranoid, keeps screaming that the walls are closing in. Because they are. He looked up at me. Did she kill him? He asked quietly. I said nothing. But the silence was answer enough. Courtroom, chaos, and a confession. The courtroom smells like old wood and cold air. Everything here echoes. The shuffle of paper, the scrape of a chair, even the sound of Patricia's heels tapping across the marble floor as she walks in like she still owns something. She doesn't. Not anymore. Caroline Lawson stands beside me at the plaintiff's table, crisp in a navy blazer, every strand of hair pinned like a warning. She's already submitted our exhibit list, the revised will, the investigator's photos, the emails, the bank transfers, and the damning audio file. Across the aisle, Patricia sits stiffly, eyes scanning the room for allies. But her mask is slipping. And Lindsay? She's not here. I wonder what finally broke her loyalty. Maybe it was the night Patricia screamed that the inheritance was never meant for a girl who couldn't finish community college. Or maybe it was just the weight of too many lies. Judge Harriet Walcott, severe and sharp-eyed, enters with the gavel in hand. This court is now in session regarding the estate of Franklin Winters, she announces. Let the storm begin. Gregory is the first to testify. I've known Mr. Winters for 15 years, he says. He was of sound mind at the time he signed the updated will. He had concerns about his marriage and took steps to secure his legacy. Patricia's attorney rises. Objection. Speculative. Caroline. Not speculative, Your Honor. Mr. Winters communicated those concerns directly, verbally, and in writing. Judge Walcott nods. Overruled. Proceed. Next comes the pharmacist, Jeremy. I refused to fill the 3rd benzodiazepine, he testifies. It was dangerous. The prescriptions were excessive, and the pattern raised red flags. Caroline leans forward. Mr. Kane, is it true that the prescriptions were all under doctors affiliated with one clinic? Yes, he says, and all appointments were scheduled by Mrs. Wadd, Patricia Winters. Patricia squirms. A juror stares. I can almost hear the click of her empire crumbling. Then it's my turn. I walk to the stand, heels steady, heart thundering. I didn't come here to fight over money, I begin. I came here because my father deserved peace in his final days. And instead, he was manipulated, drugged, and isolated by someone who claimed to love him. Caroline cues the playback. The audio clip echoes across the courtroom. He's just being difficult. I up the dosage. You sure he's not catching on? Once the new will is signed and filed, we'll handle it. A hush falls. Patricia turns pale. Under cross-examination, Caroline unleashes hell. Mrs. Winters, can you explain the $47,000 wire transfer from Mr. Winters' personal account to a bank in Arizona where your ex-husband currently resides? Patricia stammers. That was for Lindsay's college tuition. Lindsay never applied to college. Caroline says flatly. Another slide appears on screen, an image of Patricia and Thomas Kane embracing in front of a gas station in Tucson. Date stamped. Clear as daylight. The courtroom gasps. Caroline paces slowly. Why did you tell Mr. Winters that your ex-husband had abandoned you when you were actively seeing him throughout your marriage? Patricia snaps. Because it was none of his business. There it is. The unraveling. Judge Walcott leans forward. Mrs. Winters, are you stating under oath that your financial relationship with Mr. Kane continued during your marriage to the deceased? Patricia falters. I didn't mean for it to happen that way. Caroline steps in. So you admit it happened? Patricia's mouth opens, but no sound comes. Silence. Then a scream. You don't understand, she shrieks, lunging to her feet. He loved me. He was going to change it all back. Court officers move in, restraining her arms. I deserved it. That house, that money. I took care of him every damn day while she waltzed in once a month to play the loving daughter. She spits the words across the room at me. You think you're so righteous, Olivia? You were never there when it mattered. Never saw what it took to keep him from falling apart. I built that life. I stand slowly. You poisoned it, I say, and you know it. Her shoulders sag, then she collapses into her chair, sobbing. After that, it moves quickly. The judge signs an emergency order invalidating the previous will. A follow-up investigation is opened into the circumstances of my father's death. Detective Liam Connolly from the Elder Abuse Task Force approaches me outside the courtroom. We're reopening the medical file. Patricia's conduct fits a pattern we've seen before. I nod. You'll find what you need. He looks at me. And if she accelerated his condition? Then she doesn't just lose the inheritance, I say. She loses her freedom. Outside, I sit on the courthouse steps, the autumn wind brushing my face. Mason joins me a few minutes later, hands in pockets. She's finished, he says quietly, for now. He looks up. Lindsay's at a friend's house. She doesn't know what to feel. She'll have time to figure it out. He hesitates. Did she really help kill him? I don't answer, because I don't know if she helped or just looked away. But sometimes that's just as bad. Later that evening, I return to my father's house. My house now. I walk through each room slowly, rehanging his photos, opening the windows, removing her scent from the curtains. I find his journal tucked behind a bookshelf, a passage marked with a red ribbon. Legacy isn't measured in money. It's in the hands we hold, the voices we hear, the peace we leave behind. I light a candle and read it aloud. And for the first time in months, I feel him. Not just gone, but still here, watching, waiting, and proud. She took his life. Now I own hers. 3 weeks after the courtroom explosion, Patricia was arrested, not just for fraud, not just for forgery, but for intentional elder abuse, with pending charges related to negligent homicide, if toxicology reports confirmed what we feared, that she'd accelerated my father's decline with the cocktail of pills and care that slowly stripped away the man I loved. The evidence was overwhelming. The audio, the altered prescriptions, the surveillance photos of Thomas Kane slipping her unmarked bottles behind gas stations. Her finances exposed, her lies undone. She was led from her penthouse apartment in handcuffs, wearing the same designer robe she once opened the door in when I came to check on my father. No makeup, no smile, no control. They say karma takes her time, but when she arrives, she burns everything down. The headlines came fast. Socialite widow charged in estate scandal. Was Patricia Winters living a double life? The heiress and the hollow marriage. But I didn't read them. I wasn't interested in the gossip. I was too busy rebuilding what she tried to destroy. I reopened my father's foundation, Franklin Winters Trust, an organization he'd created, but Patricia had quietly bled dry under the guise of operating expenses. I poured the first payout into a legal defense fund for elderly abuse victims. Caroline helped me draft the bylaws. We named the first branch Marjorie's House. After my mom, I sat in her favorite chair when I signed the charter. I wore her necklace. Yes, the one Patricia claimed didn't match the aesthetic. I'd found it hidden behind the drywall in the bedroom closet, wrapped in silk, forgotten. Except it wasn't forgotten. She wanted me to never find it. Too bad. I didn't just win back the house. I reclaimed every inch. The piano, refinished and returned to the foyer. The books, dusted, cataloged, placed back in their shelves. Her modern furniture, gone, sold. The money, donated. And the photos of my parents, restored to their rightful places. The most prominent hangs in the hallway now. The three of us in Lake Chelan, Dad's arm around Mom's shoulder, me balanced on his knee, grinning in oversized sunglasses. Visitors stop in front of it all the time. And I tell them, that's my legacy. Not the money, the memory. But I wasn't done. I made sure Patricia saw it all. She requested a meeting from jail. Some closure, her lawyer said. I agreed. We sat across from each other in a visitation booth, thick glass between us. She looked smaller than I remembered, older. Even the lighting didn't flatter her anymore. You got what you wanted, she said. No, I replied. He got what he wanted, for the truth to be told. She laughed bitterly. You always were the favorite. I leaned forward, my voice low. You drugged him, you isolated him, you lied, forged, seduced, and stole, but the one thing you never understood was, he didn't love you. Her jaw clenched. He pitied you. That broke her. She slammed her hand against the glass, screaming as the guards dragged her away, and I walked out feeling nothing. Not triumph, not vengeance, just peace. 6 months later, she was sentenced. 25 years in federal prison. Not for murder, but for everything else. Fraud, elder abuse, identity falsification, financial exploitation. Thomas Kane disappeared. Authorities believe he fled the country. Mason moved to Denver. We email sometimes. He's in therapy, working part-time, finally sober. I think he's trying to figure out who he is without her shadow. Lindsay started school again, quiet, invisible. She sends me postcards, never says much, but always signs them with thank you for not giving up on us. I didn't answer, but I kept every single one. I live in the house now. Our house. Sometimes I still walk past his study expecting to hear him say, there's my girl. I'll never hear that again. But sometimes, when I sit by the fireplace with my wine and a legal brief in hand, I feel him, watching, proud. I've told this story not because I want sympathy, but because someone out there might need to hear it. Maybe you see the red flags. Maybe someone is slipping pills into your father's hand. Maybe someone is telling you that what you feel isn't real, that you're overreacting. You're not. And if no one believes you, be your own fire. Fight anyway, because the truth may not bring them back, but it will set you free.